Welcome to UK Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host, Yukai Kechidori.
Hello, and welcome to the greatest show on planet Earth. I love to say that. Thanks again for joining us here on the Business Show. We truly honor you and love having you here. And thank you. There's so much happening in the community, and you are part of that community, spreading the word out there. Truly appreciate you. And today, we have another special guest, and we're going to find out how our guests got started, some of the things that they did, and perhaps, in fact, I'll tell you the reason why we take time to talk about how others got started, what are their success, because we can learn from other people's failures, you know that, and we can also learn from other people's success. We can also learn about other people's stumbling blocks or those blockages along the way. So we are going to have a great time. Now, before I introduce our guest here today, I want to encourage you, if you're not yet already part of our community, you need to become part of the community. It's very easy. There is a link below this recording that you just click and you'll be taken straight to the community. And once you are in there, don't be an spectator. Be a participant. Ask questions. Talk about what's working for you. If you've got any questions that you need help with, ask. We are on the same ship. We want to do the same things. We all want to succeed. We all want to do very well. We all want to contribute. We all want to be loved. Let's go and make it happen in there. Well, enough of that. Thank you so much for joining us here today. And I know there's a few people that don't know your background, or your education or your experience in this area. Could you please tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got started, what you've done, some of the people you've helped, and why our conversation here is relevant? And perhaps you could just add in there the last one, were you an overnight success? If not, what is it that you did that has kept you on the path, for you to become the exceptional success that you are today?
Hello, Yokai. Thank you for having me on this show. It's a great honor and a great pleasure to be here today. All right, so let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I started off as an energy engineer, and energy sustainability is still my passion. I worked as an engineer for, quite a few years, and then decided I wanted to switch over to the business side. I went back and I got my MBA, and at that point, I ended up joining a startup. That wasn't my thing. I wasn't out there saying I want to join a startup, but that was actually the best job that fit my skills, my qualifications. I was a little bit hesitant at first, being such a small company, being being the only non-engineer in the company. So I was a little bit worried about how that would go. But as soon as I joined a startup after having worked at big companies for a while, it's like, wow, I have found a home. I just loved everything about it. I love being able to wear a lot of hats. I love being able to just be in a small team where everyone's really working towards a single goal. It was just perfect. And it was just a revelation. It's like, this is what I want to be doing for the rest of my career, is working at startups and building startups. So that company, I ended up staying at 10 years until it was acquired by what is now Broadcom. When that happened, one of the other engineers in the team joined me, and we created another startup in the same space, different product. And I did that for quite a few years, 13 years, until that company was acquired. And since then, I've been working with other startups. I've been kind of a guide. I've been an investor, angel investor in startups. I've been a mentor to dozens of startups. And then I also write articles on a weekly basis to try to help startups all over the world kind of understand what they need to do to build their startup and how they can find funding and how they need to talk to investors. So that's kind of been my area of expertise, has turned into kind of being a startup mentor, startup advisor, as well as doing the marketing for startup technology companies. In terms of being a overnight success, no. I think no overnight successes. I kind of worked my way through the ranks. I did engineering, went back to school, got the MBA, joined a startup. It was 10 years before that startup turned into a decent enough success that it could be acquired by another company. But I was the head of marketing of the company, but I was not one of the original founders. So the exit was not a huge success for me. But I was able to take that. And the money that I earned from that acquisition was able to go back and use that to create my own startup and fund it myself and be able to work for a couple of years without needing funding. So was able to turn one startup, leverage that into the next big startup that was my own creation, that ended up being a big success. So that ended up being like a 20-year process. So overnight success, no way. It takes a long time.
Wow. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Love that. I appreciate what you just shared there, because, I can see myself in there and in some of those things. In fact, I don't know, maybe just me, in talking to so many people, I find that there is some similarities in what all of us as entrepreneur business owners go through. And this, again, helps anybody who's coming into our world to find out that whatever they're going through is not quite unique to them. It happens to all of us. It's a journey that we all go through. Let's talk about some of the roadblocks that you had to face earlier on and how you overcame them.
With any startup, the key ends up being what's called product market fit, finding the right product for the right audience. And that's always a challenge. It's always an iterative process. Never works right the first time, and everyone has to pivot, sometimes multiple times. So I've been through that process. I think most startup founders have been through that process. In my case, the company I was working at, I was head of marketing. We were developing new products. We saw a real need to make applications run faster, and we had some technology to do that. We were software developers. We put together the software technology, and we took it to the people who needed it, and they looked at it and said, "Well, this is great, but we can't use it. The software needs to run on the network. We don't have access to the network." So that was a big failure. But we didn't give up. We took that and we said, okay, well, we need to put it on the network. So we created the next product, which was a software that would run on the network that would take the application traffic and turn it into something else that would run a lot faster. And we took that to the network people, and they said, well, that's nice, but we don't really care about application performance because we're networking people. We just want the network to work right. Application somebody else's problem. So that was probably about another year that turned into, not a complete and total failure, but let's say a 90% failure. We had a couple customers, but not very many, not a sustainable business. We hadn't really found the right product for the right audience. So we took a deep breath. We said, what do people really need and how are we going to do this? And what we realized is we need to go back to the original customers, original people who said, well, we need this, but we need it to be on the network. So we were software developers. We said, what we need to make is actually a hardware device that they can plug in and it can be on the network, and they can just put it on their network. And that was a big shift for us because we were software developers, and suddenly now we had to become a hardware development company. But we did that, and we took that out to the original customers like, yeah, that's exactly what we need. This is great. We had people flying from all over the world over to our office just to get their hands on our product. They're like, okay, now we have found product market fit. We have found the audience. We have found the product that the audience needs. And it was a long process. It was a painful process. It meant shifting our thinking. Most of all, it meant shifting our business. We had to go from being a software company to being a hardware company. That was a huge, huge shift for us because now we had inventory. Now we had shipments, we had hardware, we had repairs, we had customer support. We had all the things that a software company doesn't have that we needed to do. But that's what the product required. So the company then needed to be rebuilt around what the product was, which had to be built around what the customer was. So it was a long and painful process, but eventually led to our success.
Awesome. And did you have any tools or resources that you used earlier on in this area?
Well, I really wouldn't call it a tool, but maybe a resource, which was trade shows in the industry. Was really, really key for us because we could go there, we could talk to, normally if you try to reach out to customers, they don't want to talk to you, they're busy, they won't return your calls, they won't return your emails, they don't know who you are because you're a brand new startup. And it's really hard to get people to talk to find out what they need. Product market fit sounds easy, but if the customers won't tell you what they need, then it's hard to figure out what product to build for them. So, going to trade shows and having a booth there, even though we didn't have a product ready yet, gave us a chance to talk to hundreds of people in a day. We could put something in front of them. We could see their reaction. Did they get it? Was it what they needed? Did it solve a problem? Was the form factor the right thing? Software versus hardware versus, something else. And that really was kind of a key for us to build up kind of an understanding of what the market needed, what the customers needed. So highly recommend that for all startups that are just going out. It takes money, but it's really a great way to get together in front of potential customers and get their reaction to what you're building so that you can know what the product they actually need is.
I think I know the answer to my next question here, but for the benefit of everybody listening, especially my dear friend Bill over there, Bill, don't worry. I'm sorry I'm putting you on the spot there, brother, but let's just dive deep. Did you have any early mentors, or did you figure out all this by yourself?
Well, we really could have used mentors. I could have used a lot of mentors. But we had to figure it out ourselves. Now, the good thing was we were a small team. We were a tight-knit team. And, we were able to figure out things, but it would have been a lot easier if we had mentors to start with, which is why. So in those days, this is, going back 10, 20 years ago, there was not a huge startup community, especially we were in Los Angeles as opposed to San Francisco or Silicon Valley. We're in Silicon Beach instead of Silicon Valley. And there wasn't much of a startup community there. So after I was able to be successful with the business, I did want to give back to the community that has developed by being a mentor to other startups and really kind of helping young startup founders understand what they need to do in order to be able to build a successful business, because it's not easy. So I wish I had mentors, but now I'm happy to have lots of mentees that I'm able to help out and help them get their businesses off the ground.
I thought you would say that because I personally had both. I had the mentors, which I'm so grateful. Some of them are now my friends at this stage. And the funny thing is, I'm also their mentor on certain aspects of things. So it's a funny world that we live in, because they mentor me on one aspect of business, and I mentor them now on another aspect of business, because you cannot know everything in the world of business. That's why you need mentors, you need advisors, all people who have got different expertise. So I love what you've just shared there, and also I had to discover certain things myself. You just have to go in there and that, okay, this works and this doesn't. So a combination of the two has worked specifically for me. Let's talk about your first major breakthrough in this area. How did it come about, and what did it do for you in your own belief about your abilities and perhaps in this concept?
As I previously described, finding product market fit with our first product, where we went from really struggling to find customers and figure out what the product needed to be, to having a huge hit where our biggest problem turned out to be how could we build the hardware fast enough, because that turned into a new set of challenges. But that was a huge breakthrough for us and kind of propelled us forward from there.
So how long did it take you to get to where you are today?
So from the time I joined my first startup to the time I exited my last startup was 23 years. 23 years to get from joining a startup to being able to be a startup mentor and investor. So it was quite a long journey and quite an interesting and crazy journey.
I've discovered that people understand certain concepts through stories. And I'm wondering, is there any one particular story or example you would like to share that really sums up your early experience in this area?
So after about 6 months of pushing, we finally got a chance to meet with the team at the biggest potential customer. And this was a giant in the industry that if they bought a product, it would be, we'd be a success. So we've been pushing to talk to them for a long time. They finally agreed to have a meeting with us and do a demo of our product for them. So we flew out there that day, and our demo equipment didn't make it in the luggage. So we arrived. Our bags did not. Our demo equipment did not. So we waited around, and we had to get to the meeting. So we left one person at the airport. We sent the rest of the team over to the customer, and we kind of went through all of the background information. We went through the details. We talked about the product. We told them how it would work. And we said, demo's coming. So demo wasn't there yet. We went out to lunch. Finally, when we were wrapping up lunch, the next flight landed, and it had our equipment on board. They rushed it over in a taxi. We got in, got the team back together, set up the demo, turned it on. Didn't work. Of course, it didn't work. That was a bad day, but you have bad days. And if you're a startup, what I like to tell people is it's 3 steps forward. It's 2.5 steps back, or 2.9 steps back. It's always a struggle. When you succeed, it is just the greatest high. But then you have days like that where you just want to go home and have a drink and go to sleep, and hope the next day is better, because it's really painful. So, but having painful days like that just makes the successes feel even sweeter.
Indeed. I'm just wondering, how is the world in this area different now than when you got started? Because I can imagine that things are quite different from when you started back then.
So yes, the startup community has changed 100%, 1,000%. It is a completely different world now. So when we were getting started, you had to figure out everything yourself. There was no accelerators. There was no mentors. There were venture capital investors, but they were looking for really big ideas. There weren't very many of them. Nowadays, there's Y Combinator. There's 100 different accelerators, probably more like 1,000 different accelerators where you can join, and they can kind of help you through the process. There's plenty of mentors that are there for all of your different areas to help out. There's investors. There's early stage investors. There's small venture capital funds. And then there's large venture capital funds. So there's plenty of money out there to help you build your startup as well. So the entire community that's built up around startups is just completely different from we were kind of alone in the wilderness. It's just it's so much better now.
I'm curious, if you had to start all over again in this area, in today's world, with today's tools, time constraints, which you all have, and other factors, what would you do perhaps differently, more of, or perhaps even less of, or maybe faster? What would you do different? Or maybe you would not do at all? I'm curious if you could help us maybe paint a better picture of what we can expect now.
So in those days, you pretty much had to build a startup yourself. There really weren't resources, like I said. There wasn't funding. There weren't accelerators. There just was. You just built a small business, and you went from there. So we did what made sense at that time, which was figure out how to self fund the business. And the first startup, the success there gave me enough money to be able to self fund the second startup. Nowadays, kind of the environment's completely different, and instead of trying to self-fund the startup and doing everything with very limited budget and having to do everything ourselves without being able to hire anybody, now you can get funding, now you can get investors. So the environment's changed, and I would do it differently. Now I would go out and I would put together a pitch deck, I would find investors, I would hire people, and I would build a company kind of the more typical venture capital way, which is kind of how I advise, work with startups now, what that process is and how to go about it and how to get the funding, and what investors are looking for. So, if I knew now if I knew then what I know now, I would go about it in a completely different way.
That's brilliant. Thank you. And in your opinion, where should people like me, business owners, focus their efforts if they want to succeed in both the short term and the long term?
So for me, business success always comes down to two things. First and foremost is the customer. You have to know what they need. You have to figure out how to create something that they need, that they're willing to pay for, and then you have to keep them happy. And I think a lot of businesses kind of fail in that keeping them happy part. But if you keep your customers happy, if they like your products, they will keep buying it. And not only keep buying it, but they will tell you what new features they want, what new products they want, because they like you, and not you personally, but they like your company, and they would like you to supply more things for them. So keeping your customers happy, even if it costs a little bit extra money, costs extra time, is really a key to success. Second, is employees. If you don't have employees, you don't have business other than yourself. So kind of think of employees not as just somebody you're paying a paycheck to, but your team is your family. And you want them to share in your success. You want them to care about the success of the business as much as you do. So you really have to think of them as part of a team, not just people that you're paying. If you do that, you keep your customers happy, you keep your employees happy. I think it's hard not to be successful. So kind of that's the starting place.
Awesome. I'm a great believer in tools, be it online or offline, to help speed the whole thing. In your experience or in your professional expertise, what sort of tools would you recommend that business owners like me needs to use, or perhaps just know about?
So the most important tool from both the sales side and the marketing side is LinkedIn. Anyone who's not using LinkedIn, it's hard to say that they're even in business. It used to be you had to have a website. Now you need to have a presence and be doing LinkedIn right. But I think a lot of people don't really understand how to take the best use of LinkedIn. They think of it from a sales point of view, which is, let me just find my potential customers and send them messages, which is really no different than email. And that's mostly going to be ignored. So what you need to do is think like a marketing person, and build a community, build a network, put out information, put out useful articles. It's not just about how wonderful your product is or how successful you are, but is the sort of information that people find useful, educational, talk about the industry. They read that, then they become connected with you. They start to see who you are and what you're doing. And then it's easier to reach out to them and say, hey, we have this product. Would you be interested in it? So I always see LinkedIn less as a sales tool. It's like the most important sales tool, but I think it's even more important as a marketing tool to build up your network and build up your place in the industry and build up recognition of who you are and what you're doing, which is really, really key for small businesses and startups.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. This is incredible. I love those tools. Absolutely wonderful. Now, let's talk about time management, because one of the things that we struggle with as business owners, especially at the level that we are playing on, and I know many of you, our listeners here, do the same thing, is having a very good time management. And would you have any tips for time management when it comes to this area?
Well, I'm probably the worst person to ask about time management because I'm a workaholic. And first thing I do when I get up in the morning is check my messages from from Europe and deal with any emergencies there. Then I'll make some breakfast. Then I can deal with the East Coast. Then I can deal with the West Coast. Then I can have dinner in the evening, and then afterwards I'm dealing with Asia with the emergencies in there. So I do try to mix time in there where I'm not working all the time. But the idea of a 9 to 5 job, if you're a business owner, I mean that's gone. If you're a startup founder, no, you need to be working with the whole world. Except bigger company, they've got offices all over the world. They got people who can deal with it locally. If you're a startup, you're dealing with the whole world yourself. So you just have to be prepared for that. But you do need to find time for yourself in there. So kind of don't work the entire time from 6 a.m. till 11 at night. Even though you do need to talk to people at 6 a.m. and you do need to be talking to people 11 at night, there's time in there that you need to actually go out, take a walk around, relax a little bit, play some video games, whatever you do to relax, read a book, and even though that might be regular working time, the fact that you're going to be working early and late, give yourself some leeway to take a little bit of time off during what's normally considered the work day.
Where would you get perhaps news or updates about this area that, Bill, in our audience and anybody listening that you perhaps trust, or the people you trust, that we can put in our black book, so to speak? Everybody knows about the black book that we have here. In your experience, where would you get your updates in this area and the news of what is happening in this world?
So every industry is a little bit unique and will have its own sources of news, but every industry has its own ecosystem. There's usually articles, there's usually publications, there's usually trade shows, there's usually some influencers who or consultants who put information out regularly on places like LinkedIn. And so really, I guess my recommendation is become an integral part of the industry and be in all the places that all the industry people are, so that you know the same things that they do. Especially if you're a startup and you may not be coming from the industry, you need to get yourself up to speed quickly. You need to be going to the shows. You need to be reading everything so that you really understand the industry and the customer and their needs are before trying to build a product for them. So it's not a specific tool. It is like just dive into whatever everyone in the industry does.
Awesome. Incredible. I'll have to check those ones out. Do you think it's easier today or harder for new business owners like, Maria was talking to earlier on today, starting out, than it was for you when you got started? And if it is, why? Or maybe why not? Yes.
So the startup world has just changed so radically. Like I said before, we used to be out in the wilderness by ourselves, trying to figure things out by ourselves because there were no other startups around. And nowadays, there's a million startups, there's a million accelerators, there's a million mentors, there's a million advisors. There's a huge community, it's a whole world. And that makes it a lot easier. But at the same time, it also makes it tougher. We had a bit of an advantage in that because building a startup before was a lot more difficult, so few people were doing it, which kind of made, we had a lot fewer competitors. And now there's a million people doing the same thing, which is great. But there's also a million competitors and a lot of noise out there. So the marketing becomes a lot more difficult. to find customers. So it's a double-edged sword, right? That it's easier to build a startup for you, but it's also easier to build a startup for your competitors. So you do need to find something that is going to stand out, be unique, and be something that customers want to jump on that can't be copied by your competitors.
Awesome. We are just coming toward the end of our time here together. And, I always like to ask this question. Probably my listeners have heard me ask this many, many times. And it is, what final thoughts do you have to help motivate business owners to get started or take action right now and move their lives and their business to the next level?
So it's a daunting process. To give up a safe job, you're getting a salary, you're getting benefits, where your paycheck's coming from. To give all that up and say, I'm going to build a startup. The world needs this new product. I'm the one to build it. So I'm just going to give up everything and go off and do that. Hopefully I can find some investors to help pay for it so I can hire some more people to join me. But this is my life. If you like stability, if you feel a lot more comfortable knowing that you have a paycheck with benefits and health benefits, especially in the U.S., are a big thing, you probably don't want to do a startup. On the other hand, and you're probably better off being if you're bored being in a big company, if you feel kind of constricted doing a kind of very narrow job, like wearing a lot of hats, like doing different things, like your life to be an adventure, then it's time to go. Because there's, whether you succeed or fail, the great thing about startups is it's a great adventure. It's frustrating at times, but it's also a lot of fun. It's very fulfilling. And, worst cases you fail. And the great thing about it is, okay, well, now it was a learning experience. Now you're ready to build your next startup. That's the mentality of startup founders. So it's if you like adventure, this is the thing you got to do. So don't hesitate. Just make sure you got a good product that people need or a good product idea, and then go off and build it.
Outstanding. Well, thank you so much for a great interview. And I know there will be people listening today that would love to connect with you and really get perhaps to explore some of the aspects that we did not manage to talk about in this episode. Where can they connect with you? Where can they find you? Have you got a website, or is it just social media?
So I actually have two websites, two very different websites. The first one is, if you're building a startup, I've got about 100 articles up there right now of all sorts of advice of all the things you need to know to get started, kind of how to build a pitch deck, how to talk to investors, how to figure out your potential market size, how to find product market fit. There's 100 articles there that hopefully you will find incredibly valuable. That website is pitchingangels.com. So HTTPS, pitchingangels, all one word.com. The second, I haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, but my hobby, actually my new career, is as a novelist writing mystery novels about life in Silicon Valley. So I recently released or Panda Moon Publishing, my publisher, recently released my first novel. It's called To Kill a Unicorn. It's about a startup in Silicon Valley doing some bad things and a hacker who has to figure out what's going on at the company and find his missing friend. Novel again, To Kill a Unicorn. You can find out all about the novel on my personal website, which is dcpalter.com. So dcpalter.com, and you can read all about To Kill a Unicorn, and you can find the book on Amazon.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. What a great conversation we've just had here today. And as we always say, never leave a place of discovering a new concept, idea, or a new way of doing things without scheduling a time when you're going to be implementing that. And the reason we do that is because when you schedule something, it is now known, proven that when it's scheduled, it is going to happen. And again, this is a coaching session. When you find yourself not doing what you had scheduled to do, you may want to find the reason behind not following through, because not following through in that area, that thing that is stopping you from following through could be stopping you from following through on other areas of your life that you need to deal with right now. And once you find that reason why, you'll be able to follow through on all areas of your life that you want to achieve. So again, make sure you circle that and do everything you can do. And one of the things that we've put in place to help you make sure you follow through is the community. And I know many of you are already part of the community right now. But if you're not yet a member of the community, can I ask you, just click the link below and you'll be taken to an account where you create your own account. Download the app onto your phone and just dive in and start talking to other people and ask your questions and begin to help other people as well. And coming back to you, would you tell people how you will be participating in the community to help or maybe answer some of the questions that people may have? I think it will be great for everybody to know that you will be participating in the group, in the community that we have in there. And I will let you finish off with that in a minute. But for you, ladies and gentlemen, if you need help and assistance, you know what to do. Until next time, live well, live with passion, know that the best is truly, I believe it is truly yet to come. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Yukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.